All right, we're here at my indoor vermi hut, and the first thing we're going to do is check on that top feeding from last time. So this top feeding was to see if Brussels sprout leaves or a regular piece of romaine lettuce would be eaten up by the worms first, and to check to see how fast they ate goji berries. And as you see, by day 5, everything was gone except for the orange peel that got stuck to the ceiling of the lid. So speaking of the lid, let's go ahead and kind of give it a check out, because one of the things I want to show you is that the worms actually go underneath here. So let me get this lid off real quick. So one of the things you'll notice when you get a vermi hut is that after a short while, the worms will climb around or through this layer right here, and they will go into and inside the lid. And in the lid is a cocoa coir mat that after, I think this has been about a year to a year and a half, they slowly turn to vermicompost or castings. Now, when I first got this, I would come in here and take all the worms out and put them back in, and I got very frustrated until I realized, you know what? The worms just absolutely love going in here. And one of the things you notice is these holes over here, and that is to get air in, and then the mat is to prevent insects and stuff like that from being able to get into your bin and lay their eggs, etc. And it works fantastic for that. Occasionally the worms will kind of stick their heads through here, and right away they'll pull them back in because of the dry air that's on the outside of this. So it looks like we could probably replace this mat in another few months, maybe even up to 6 months. But I just want to let you know that if you see worms up here in the lid, that is not unusual. Doesn't affect your lid, and the worms absolutely seem to love it. So I do not bother them up here. So let's go ahead and attempt to put this back together. You can see these tabs secure it, but also makes it a little bit difficult to put them back in. And we'll see if I need that knife. I think I can, yep, just kind of get past them just like that. I'll definitely be putting these in the worm bin when I'm done. So as I told you, the orange peel was stuck right here on the lid. So let's go inside and see if we can find it. So this right here looks like an indentation from the lid, and same with this flatness. But right here is where the orange peel was. We got a worm right there. And I was really surprised to see how fast that top feeding went, because we gave a pretty decent feeding underneath, and nope, no sign of that orange peel at all. So what we're going to do today is we are actually going to take this tray right here and put it underneath to be a pre-harvest tray. Right now we just have 3 inoculating trays underneath this one, and this one is the top feeding tray. And I had to do that because I took a couple months off and the worms just kind of went through all the trays and made a lot of castings. So I just had to reset. If you've been following along with me, you will see that this is kind of the culmination of that reset. And right here we're finding something which is probably avocado shell, and right down here where the feeding zone is, lots of worms right there. You can see them pretty well. And one of the unique things about compost earthworms is that they don't mind being around each other, and I think we're starting to run into what I think is a kale stem. Yep. And before we go too much further, let's check on what we gave the last time. Because I knew this tray was going to be the next pre-harvest tray, I didn't add any bedding, and instead we added some of the leftover food scraps we found, and we put that on the bottom. And then we went right in with some garden scraps to include 2 kale stems and beans we grew. Then we added in an apple core, some tangerine peel, onion skin, and lettuce, followed by a banana peel and a chunk of a banana, a tiny tomato, along with broccoli pieces and another apple core. Finally, we added a piece of yellow squash and a cucumber from the garden, and of course we added our amendments of worm chow, coffee grounds, and eggshell grit. We also added all the food scraps you already saw in the time lapse, so that was a pretty big feeding. And let's kind of go inside this kale stem and see if the worms are inside. If you watched my last video in the urban worm bag, you saw that they kind of emptied out a kale stem at the top of it, and in the middle was kind of some of the chunky stuff in the middle. And it looks like these worms have gotten all the way through it, and we just got some ones that are hiding right there. Now this is going to take a long time because it is pretty firm, so I'm going to leave that on top and see if I can remember to put that in the tray that's going to go on top next. And here is just some more of it, and I can feel within there's lots of castings, so no doubt lots of worms in there as well. And I'll kind of let them stay in this lower half here. There's a little bit more of the fibers, and let me feel around here. There's something else kind of chunking around, and again more avocado stems. So this right here looks like maybe a piece of the avocado. Yep, it's a little bit mushy there. And I think we've actually been somewhere close to 29 days since we were in here. And that's all right because this is going to go down to the pre-harvest tray, and I really want them to kind of make it as much worm castings as possible and get some of these extra pieces out. So it's going to go down below and we'll be there for 60 days, and you'll probably notice that there is just worm castings in here after that time. Here we go, more avocado shell and some piece of avocado. That is odd to me because usually I see them eat the avocado kind of like a medium to long-term food, but it looks like they're having trouble getting into it. So break it up a little bit and then we'll feed it to them. Let's just go back here to see if there's anything on the sides. We didn't feed back there, but sometimes when I'm aerating, which is what I'm doing now, I'll knock some of the long-term foods back here. I really don't see anything back here. There we go. Okay, now we are just going to smooth it out and then we will swap the trays. So I'm just going to put some of this stuff that's taking longer in here, and we'll just let the next tray of worms digest it. Smooth this out. And now we are going to take the oldest inoculating tray, which is right below this, and put it on top. 1, 2, 3. So here we are in that oldest inoculating tray, and it has gotten no food ever. It went in here as dry bedding, and you can see on the top, you know, some castings and that kind of thing, kind of gravity fed from the tray above it, but underneath is just pure dry shredded cardboard, and there are even some worms in here, you can see, just like that. So if it's moist enough, the worms are going to go into it, which is why you saw worms in the lid. Anytime there's moisture, it's almost like a monorail or superhighway for them to go, and they take advantage of it as they're very curious creatures searching out any kind of new food. So let me go ahead and kind of aerate this, and then we will set up for our feeding. All right, so we've got our trough that we're going to feed in. The first thing I always do is add some dry shredded cardboard, and even though this is mostly shredded cardboard, I'm always going to add this with my feedings. And next we'll kind of dump in that old food that we had.
Good job remembering.
And this will give the worms to kind of make the rest of this old long-term food into castings. And the first food we're going to feed them is some old stale popcorn. That was a little bit more than I wanted to give, but I think the moisture is going to kind of help shrink this popcorn. The other thing I want to add in here is the napkins that I kind of washed my hands with. Then we'll go in with some really juicy foods, and here is a yellow watermelon, and here is a pink watermelon. Never even knew they had yellow watermelons, but the flesh was absolutely delicious. I'll add one more piece of yellow, and we've got a lettuce stalk along with a tomato, more stalks, and then this is an onion, and here's the top of it. We used some of it, but didn't use it all, and I'm just going to put that in there. And yes, you can add onion to your worm bins. This is a super mature bin, which is why you see me adding so much. And here's the last thing we're going to add. This is lion's mane mushroom, and I didn't know that they smelled almost aquatic-y, fishy. Maybe they're not supposed to, but I just was very surprised by the smell, and probably caused us not to eat as much as we would have normally. But there is our feeding.
It smells awful right now.
And the executive producer said this feeding smells awful. This is just some worm chow, which is expired grains from our pantry. And I just put it in here and blend it up in my Magic Bullet blender. I've got affiliate links for all the worm equipment I use if you want to see how much they cost or what I use. Go ahead and check the links in the description. And I put them in the pinned comment too. And here's just some coffee grounds. I'm going to give them a lot because we have been drinking a lot of coffee and making a lot of these coffee grounds. So I put them on the side as well. You do want to be careful, especially in an outdoor bin. If you put coffee grounds like this, they are super fine and they've got a lot of surface area so they can heat up your bin. And then finally, I'll go in with some eggshell grit. And if you watch that time lapse back again, you'll see on day 2, all the grit was gone. So the worms clearly like to come up and ingest it. So I think this is a pretty good first feeding for my very mature VermiHut. In fact, it is closing in on 4 years and it's the same batch of worms. I don't think think I added any more worms, and I guesstimate I have probably somewhere around 5,000 in here. So this feeding that you see here is a pretty big feeding, and that is because A, I have 5,000 worms, but B, also because super mature, lots of microbes in here, and because everything kind of gravity feeds to the lower trays, those microbes are mature even though this tray is having its first time coming up and being fed. So I'm going to kind of fill in the gaps with some more shredded cardboard and kind of cover up the food, and we'll top it off with another piece of paper towel. And if you're interested in how I rotate my VermiHut, check out this video right here or any of the videos you see here on some of the other time lapses I've done. So I hope you're having a great day. I hope your worm bins are doing fantastic. So happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now.
Thank goodness. That smelled so bad.